Hey guys, StarCraft here, and well, the other poll went through, and you guys want me to do a talk about my concepts, my character spotlight, and creation spotlight. I guess we'll call this. And today, I'm over here. That way, I can have enough room to have the images next to me. But let's start off with the character. Well, it's one of, and because sorry, let me start over. This is going to be me talking about my concepts. I cannot draw. That's why I'm never going to do any sketching stuff or sketch drawing streams, nothing like that, because I can't do that. What I can do is think. I've been having all these creative ideas in my mind, working and improving them for quite a while. But I also am the kind of person who tries to think of other variations to do, whether I'm going to do it in a movie, TV show, comic book, things like that, or even if I have to, and I want to, an Indiegogo comic where I'll be talking and where I know full well I'll be doing one book every type of period, so I have to either keep it done in one or make sure it's still at least contained enough that when I come on to the next one, once it's done, people want to pay for the next one. Slightly different from a regular comic book format. So that's why what I'm about to share you, I'm just sharing with you stuff based off of my various versions of things beforehand. Any incarnation is not going to be guaranteed is going to be in the final product of whenever I do eventually make this. Because there's the thing, I do have a artist in mind for doing the artwork. It's not a guarantee, so if not, the very least I'm showing you guys, and if any of you guys are interested, drop me a line. But or if you want to do fan art, just show it to me. Make sure I'm kept in touch, and then you guys can go ahead. But what's this going to be about exactly? That I'm going to be choosing certain characters I'm going to talk about. I might get them all done in one video. I might do multiple videos depending on how big the cast or supporting characters and all that are. And sometimes I might just talk about just the one character. But what you'll be seeing over there is every time I go to conventions, I make sure I get commissions done of some of my characters. Or I also had other people do drawings of them, just to give a visual representation of it. Now this one we're going to be talking about is my big villain. And there's going to be some other sub-villains within this video. I'm going to be talking about the big bad of my little fictional universe, known as Lord Visaru of Garuria. Where does this idea of Visaru, well, yeah, look at him. Blue, red eyes, black hair. Star Wars fans, I think you know where one of his influences are. Where did I get the idea for Visaru? Well, I've always been a big fan of manipulator villains. For example, what makes up Visaru? You have Thanos, bit of dark side, but most importantly, Grand Admiral Thrawn from the Star Wars novels and Rebels and all that lately. I love that character of Thrawn. Just the idea that he's such a tactical genius and very unconventional in how he thinks and operates, especially compared to the Empire. Visaru here is very much like that. And yeah, Visaru is just what is the whole point of Garuria and Visaru and all that? What makes him so evil? What's that the thing about Visaru? He's not entirely evil. But what he does is very evil. How is that? Well, eons ago, his people in Garuria, one of their greatest scientists was able to scientifically prove without a shadow of a doubt that as far as they were concerned and knew, their species was the most perfect species in the universe. And they had power to back it up. Now, little known thing, and like I said, this might end up being dropped if I ever do it for Indiegogo, but for the most part, I've kept this consistent. It's not true. Obviously, it's not true. But the scientist came up with that lie, hoping that because the people were at war at that point when it happened. So he wanted to try and bring an end to it by saying, we're all perfect, let's harmonize, yada yada. Unfortunately, one particular Garurian by the name of Makai, no, I don't have any drawings for him, unfortunately, but he basically saw it as an opportunity to manipulate the people. But not in the way you'd think. He first killed the scientists, obviously, after the announcement was done, and their whole people think we're perfect. And then he started to convince the people that if we're the most perfect people in the universe, then this universe is rightfully ours. And the other thing about the Grunions is they are very long-lived, but they can also multiply pretty damn fast. So, of course, with the war done, starting to overpopulate a bit. So they decided we're going to expand. We're going to start going out to other worlds. Start with their solar system, but then it was decided they're not going to just wipe out. You think they're just going to, they're wiping out all the other planets. No, they're not doing it like that. Instead, they are testing the other planets. For the longest time, from the beginning till by the time of Visaru, they usually included mostly doing militaristic, basically almost the conquest. That's usually, and they would usually go by Lord and Lady. Now, the thing about Garuri is they're not all soldiers. I didn't want to go that cliche. No. Their military is vast and huge. But on the Garuri and all their regular colony worlds, normal human beings, suburbias and all that. But the heroes don't know that till well later on. Until that point, like so many others, they keep assuming, they're all warriors, they're all this and that, when they're like Klingons. No, that's too obvious for one thing. But anyway, the way they operate that, they would go there and they would make offers. Because here's the stipulations for it. One, they wait for the species to actually be of a proper development. If they are more likely to reach that point. If it looks like they're not going to wipe them out. But usually they are very patient, given how long-lived they are, and they would wait it out, watching them and observing them. And basically then, once they eventually do reach that type of development where they could actually potentially give up a good challenge, they go there and they make an offer. And the offer is this: you could either leave the planet and we won't bother you. You have a renewal on life, and not, or at least an extension. They might come back to them later, they might not. Or they could try and fight them. Now, the thing about the Grunions is they are incredibly powerful. And they're also known for holding back their power. Why? Because they can wipe everyone else like that, and that's not honorable. That wouldn't be fair. That'd be too much of a just steamroll. So the way they always operate is kind of like Thor, 1% of their power at first, and then they would adjust it accordingly if need be. Because here's the thing about the Grunions: immensely powerful, but they're not invincible. Now, what kind of skills can they do? Well, like Visaru here, they could either have Ki Blasts. Oh, by the way, that artwork, Chris Burnham from Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated and all that stuff. That guy. The guy who's a very Frank Whiteley like. Yeah, as you see, he's doing a Ki Blast. He could do Ki and all, shooting him out. He can also read minds, telepathy, telekinesis. And he also has a sword. Now, in Visaru's case, he actually was able to, during his travels, gather up a one sword called the Shadow Blade. Technically, it can cause him immense magic. He never uses it. Doesn't need to. And he doesn't want to be corrupted. But it does give him access to a pocket dimension that he sometimes goes for his own alone time away from it. Because here's the thing also. He is a lord. He has a crew and everything. Very loyal. But when Visaru came around, Visaru decided he wanted to change things. Because when Visaru started out as a lord, okay, just to point out one other thing, this is going to be very off the cuff. So if I'm going all over the place, that's why. Because that's just how my mind works, and trust me, I will get to so much. But when Visaru was young, a civil war broke out. Basically, you had a whole bunch of people who started to, of their own kind, basically like, no, this is wrong, we shouldn't do this, and they started fighting each other. Visaru had two friends, a love interest and a best friend, but the best friend joined up with the resistance. Visaru, of course, was loyal. Now you think, let me guess, the love interest joined up with the other friend. No, she believed fully in what Visaru did. She believed fully in everything. But Unfortunately, this led to her getting killed by the best friend, who Visaru then killed afterwards. But her dying words were, "Never stop." And he's been, in her memory, makes it seem very clear he won't. But he decided they needed to change tactics. Now, before Visaru became a lord, his father was the greatest conqueror of the old ways. But Visaru decided they needed a new way. One that would not wipe out all the species' information, their arts, all that stuff from existence, but also two, give them a much better chance than just simply wholesale, just militaristic attacks. So he decided instead, because here's the other thing, rewinding a little bit, a way the Goruians also operate that you can have a full-scale campaign, an attack campaign, all that stuff, and so long as you and a Goruian, the person can outlast the whole campaign. In other words, they don't have to wipe out every Goruian, but if a Goruian puts in one big master plan or a long-term plan, if that fails, they won. The Goruian declares victory, and they leave, and the planet remains untouched and is allowed to repair itself. Now, I show the point out very quickly. The only other thing that could save a planet is if someone else enslaved that planet, because the Goruians in their ancient times, before they got so powerful, were enslaved themselves, and they hate when that happens. So if they ever see it, they would wipe out the enslaved, the ones that were enslaving the race, and just leave the planet be. They'll never conquer it, because they don't want to. They feel like a kindred to them. Because here's the whole thing about what the Goruians are doing. They're doing it because they feel like these people have to earn the right to coexist with us. Unfortunately, given how smart, intelligent, and powerful the Goruians are, by the time of present day starts, they've already taken over 2 galaxies. And I do mean full speed space galaxies, not just, galaxies as in a name. No, I mean literal galaxies they've conquered. But anyway, back to Visaru. Visaru decided, by the way, now this artwork is done by Dan Frega. A nice simple one. And this one right here is done by Shane Davis. It's a little rough one. It was a free sketch. I really much like it. And this one, Tim Seeley, one of the best. And he really shows Visaru's noble side. Because, moving on, with Visaru, he decided then to instead of doing full-on attacks, he decided, I'm going to study the species. Study them, get to understand them, figure out how they operate, and then start to do some undermining tactics. He does more strategy as far as, I'm going to bring them down from within. But if they ever catch on, and they are able to foil me, it's a defeat. But the thing Visaru doesn't realize, and he doesn't for a long time, is he ends up covering his tracks too well. He doesn't think he does. He thinks, if they're smart enough to realize it, they will do it. But unfortunately, he doesn't. He does it so well that usually they never figure it out. He ends up covering all of his tracks instead of just most of his tracks. And that's again, he doesn't realize it. So usually, that's why he ends up becoming a perfect conqueror. Every time he does it, he ends up, every time he goes through, he ends up just winning them all, but he retains everything that he's learned. And there are some species that do come close because of his tactics. But at the same time, it's still never enough. But Visaru's not hardest. He doesn't want to keep doing it. There's so many times Visaru wishes a species would either take the option of leaving the planet, or he eventually wants there to be a species that can defeat him. But on the right natural terms. He's never going to throw a fight. One, his honor wouldn't allow that, but also because some people are going to call it off. And basically, and it never comes, and it bothers him and his crew, because his crew, like I said, are loyal to him. And eventually, though, when he comes around wrong species that ends up being physically almost a match for Goruian power, but he still wipes them all out. After that genocide happens, he finds the sole remaining child, one who was born within hours before the last of her people fell, and he took her in. It's kind of like her is Gamora. In her case, her name is Kim Newell. Don't have a drawing for her either, but no, actually no. There she is. Kim Noir is basically like what happens when you take Gamora and mixes her with Karai from Ninja Turtles in together. You have a bit of a similar backstory to Gamora, but the loyalty of most versions of Karai, where she loves her father. In fact, he makes it clear what happened to her people, but because she was born so close to her and she had no attachment, no, you know, who her real parents were, she doesn't care. Call it cold or whatever, but it's basically when you really think about it, it's like, oh, okay, but you still raised me and all that. And so, yeah, that's how that goes. And he trains her, makes her so powerful, a deadly person. But eventually, he one day sends her out on a wild goose chase and leaves her. Why? Because he fears one day of her turning on him, and he could never bring himself to do it. He couldn't. So he sent her on a wild goose chase. But she did realize why he did it and tries to find him so she can tell him, it's okay, Dad. Now, this one right here is done by Dave Gibbons. Yes, that Dave Gibbons. And this one here is done by Norm Retman. This is the only color one that I got, and yeah, that one right there gave me a new addition to the Garuians. That scar that he put on him, or that birthmark, no one ever did that, and I decided I'm going to incorporate it in from now on. This one is Angel Medina. Yeah, he did a very good job there as well. And this one is Andy Lanning. Very cosmic, very Kirby dot. I really like this one. And this one is the rough sketch anyway of the artwork I want to do by a friend of mine by name is Destikim. He's the guy I want to plan on doing all this stuff and all the comic I want to do. But anyway, back with Visaru. Like I said, Visaru is noble, but he's also a firm believer in what his people do. He's very dangerous, very powerful. Like I said, he's basically my big ultimate villain for a good length of time. Now, now that shows up. He was trained by Makai. He had a feeling about Makai's dark intentions. Because here's the other thing about Makai. Why did he start all this? Why did he start his people on this route? While they were doing this, the conquering on one side of the universe, he was secretly using their technology on the other side of the universe, conquering it. Yeah, he was conquering and enslaving people on the other side of the universe, while his own people were conquering and wiping out those on the other side. Because he figured he could build an empire on the other side of the universe with his own might. And his people, those who would be the noble ones, because there was plenty of those who were the noble ones, would not stop him. Because here's the other thing about his people, their people. Makai's not the ruler. The way they work is you have ruling families. Basically, kind of a bit of a people who are selected to be involved and rule. And unless a scandal happens, and there are scandals, or the entire family is wiped out, they usually rule or they choose to step down. They usually rule for a long time. But if ever any of those things happen, they will then vote, and people will then vote them in. Across the galaxies of planets, that's quite a campaign to do. But they are usually the ones who call the shot. Everyone answers to them every time, and they are fair and just. But they're still also dogmatic and stuck in their ways. Because the other thing about Visaru, he does eventually become the greatest conqueror, but that doesn't mean that much. Because there's such a I won't say a heretic, but definitely a going against their ways by doing it the way he's been doing it. And some people don't, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of the newer people do. But one in particular, the second best next to Visaru, the woman next to him, Demetria. She is has always been in his shadow. In fact, she was also a student of Makai alongside Visaru, but she became more like Makai, wanting to conquer. And the way she became the second greatest is, unlike Visaru, who just had an untarnished record, but it was also done way more and gotten so much more for the Garuian people. Demetria, hers is, she has generals. She would send out to other planets and conquer them multiple times at once. That's how she does it. And she doesn't always have to be there. Her generals will hand her it, send her updates, and she's smart enough to deal and figure out battle strategies. Because here's usually how it goes for Garurians. The men are the powerhouses, the women are the strategists. It doesn't always work. In the case of Visaru, he's one of those cases where he's both. But that's usually how it goes more times than not. Women are the ones that could kick all kinds of ass too, but they're also more the ones who come up with these brains and the strategies. Men, again, can do the strategies, as Visaru really proves, but are also the ones who are more likely to be in the, the grunt work sometimes. Again, it can interchange, of course, but on average, that's usually how it is. And I came up with this long before any of this progressive stuff, people, right? I want to make that clear. But anyway, with Visaru, though, eventually he's trying to find something called the Axis. Why? Because he wants to, it's basically a way to go to the dawn of time. And only at the dawn of time can you rewrite the universe however you want without having to try and just make changes and hope it'll go your way. No. Go to the dawn of time, you can change however you want, but only to the Axis. Why? Any other way, there's a barrier that would prevent you from going there. And basically, he wants that because he wants to try and jump ahead. Because he feels like many of his people, they do die, there are casualties. And he feels like, let's just bring this to an end and just jump to the end point. What Visaru didn't put into account, because again, he can be short-sighted sometimes. He's always a long-term planner, but in other cases, he can be very short-sighted. In this case, again, he's pointed out much later, but he never realized what's going to happen to the planets they've already conquered, or what about the ones that could have been equals, or maybe even their betters, that never get a chance because he takes a shortcut. He's just so focusing about his people that he didn't think about that. And yeah, eventually he does, and basically eventually Visaru does. I do plan Visaru eventually being redeemed in some way. Obviously he's done so much deaths and everything, it's kind of hard to, but trust me, it's not like Vegeta where you're like, oh, how do we get from here to there? In his case, no, you do see that there's a good man who's just so stuck in his ways. And eventually Kim No-wal, and I do have a love interest I'll get to at one point. And eventually he does join up and help out however he can. And then Demetra becomes the big bad for a good length of time. And eventually though, at least this is my initial plans, the Garurians do find out the truth and try and change everything. Again, this is just where I'm getting loose, but that's basically how I go with a lot of this. Now, as far as if I ever made this animated, originally I always saw Visaru being voiced by Tony J, Megabyte from Reboot. Can't do it because he's gone now, but has that nobility, and yet when he really needs to, he can be menacing. Kind of like Zinyak from Saints Row 4 voiced by J.B. Blanc. That whole, except turn down the ego and turn up the honor. That's Visaru, very much so. And besides J.B. Blanc, the other person I would definitely want to have voiced Visaru would be David K., Beast Wars Megatron. Yes, indeed. I think he could definitely pull it off. As far as Demetria, Marina Sirtis, aka Counselor Troy from Star Trek, and Demona from Gargoyles. Just that she can do evil very well. In fact, a lot of the other evil Garurians would be British. Like I would see Michael Ironside as Mackay, and Jeremy Irons as Visaru's father, Vanish. And yeah. And also David Warner would voice another mentor for Visaru, named Damius, who's also kind of what got Visaru down on his different tactics, but he's still even more loyal towards the Garurian ways than Visaru ever was. And basically, I can go more about all the Garurians and everything, but that's basically a general gist of what I have sought out for Visaru. Very noble, very powerful, very dangerous, very intelligent, but deep down, a good man who just feels what he's doing, it's just going with what his people's ways are. And eventually does come about realizing how what to do with well. Because he's very, like I said, very honorable. In a way, because like any Garurians, he will go into battle, pull down his strengths, And in his mind, he's always feeling like, don't they realize I could just bulldoze them? And bulldoze them without a second thought? Yeah, he picks up slang and other pop culture reference when he studies Earth. But yeah, he's like, I could just steamroll right over them if I want to. Fake them holding back, you know. And he always tries to be fair, but when he ever has any of the heroes who are basically saying, like, you're a monster, you're a murderer, you are all that stuff, it'll set him off because he feels like, you don't know what a monster is. I am not a monster. To which is like, no, he just does monstrous things, which is very true. Again, very much it's complicated, that's what I'll say. So, that's the first one. Tell me how you guys think. Any suggestions for how I can improve this? Because like I said, I just went off the cuff and it's getting kind of late, as you can probably see. So, if I need to give more detail or reorganize this, I will. But also, I'm blanking on some of the names for some of the artwork, but I'll have words over it, as you'll probably see. But yeah, that's Visaru for you. Not sure which character I'll tell you about next, but probably my pride and joy, Jewel. So until then, catch you all later.